Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into a topic that I know a lot of you have been struggling with, masculine and feminine nouns in Spanish.
Ooh, yeah, those can be tricky.
Yeah, and one of our listeners actually sent in a video lesson from a Spanish teacher named Jaime.
Oh, cool.
And it's super interesting. He uses all sorts of real-world examples to explain things.
Yeah.
And, it's not just about memorizing O and A endings. There's actually a lot more to it.
Right. It gets pretty nuanced.
Definitely nuanced. So we know that nouns ending in O are generally masculine, like gato, loro, vaso.
Yeah, those are classic examples.
Classic examples, exactly. And then nouns ending in A are generally feminine, like casa, medalla, copa.
Mhm.
But the thing is, there are all these exceptions.
Oh, tons of exceptions. That's where it gets fun.
It does get fun, but also a little confusing. Like, what about those masculine nouns that shift to A when they become feminine?
Oh, yeah. So you have leon becoming leona, which makes sense, right? Like lion, lioness.
Right, that one's pretty straightforward.
But then you have amigo becoming amiga, pero tu per.
It's like the whole word is changing, not just adding an extra letter.
Exactly. And it shows how ingrained gender is in Spanish language. It's not just about pronouns like in English.
Because like the gender is baked into the noun itself.
Right. And you see echoes of this in English, like actor and actress. But Spanish takes it way further.
Way further, for sure. So is there any way to predict which masculine nouns will make that O to A shift?
Not really a hard and fast rule, but it often happens with nouns related to people, professions and stuff. And sometimes it's more than just the ending. You might add a syllable or two as well.
Interesting. So it's not always predictable, but there are some patterns to look out for.
Definitely some patterns. And then you have those nouns that end in E or a consonant. Those can be either masculine or are feminine.
Yeah, that's where I started getting lost.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know which one is which?
It is tricky. Context is super important here. Like Jaime gives the example of cine, which means cinema is masculine.
Okay, so scene is masculine. Got it.
But then noche, meaning night, is feminine.
So same ending, but different genders. It's a lot to keep track of.
It is. Paying attention to how native speakers use those words is key, Develop an ear for it.
You can't just rely on the spelling.
Exactly.
Now, what about those irregular forms that Hemi talked about? Like actor becoming actress is similar to English, but then you have rey becoming reina and principe becoming princesa.
Right. Those are fun.
Fun, but tricky. Is there like a historical reason for these weird shifts?
Oh, absolutely. These irregular forms often reflect the evolution of the language, influences from Latin, Arabic, all that good stuff. It's like each word carries a little bit of history within it. Like reina, for example. It comes from the Latin word regina, which also meant queen.
Wow. So the connection goes way back.
Way back. It's fascinating to see how these linguistic connections have shaped the language we use today.
It's like a history lesson and a grammar lesson all rolled into one.
Exactly. That's what I love about languages. There's always a deeper story to uncover.
Okay, I'm ready for the really weird stuff. The stuff that totally breaks the O and A rule. What about those masculine nouns that end in A? Jaime mentioned those, and they blew my mind.
Oh, yeah, those are the notorious exceptions. Those are the ones that trip everyone up.
Like el águila for eagle.
El águila, exactly. El sofá for sofa.
El mapa for map. It just seems so wrong.
I know, right?
Like an eagle seems so feminine to me, soaring through the sky. Why would it be masculine in Spanish?
It does seem counterintuitive, right? But hey, that's language for you. It doesn't always follow logic. And to make things even weirder, águila actually becomes feminine in its plural form. Las águilas.
Wait, it changes gender in the plural? What?
I know, right? It's like the language has its own internal logic that we're trying to figure out. And these exceptions can give us clues about how the language evolved and adapted over time.
So is there a theory about why águila specifically does that plural gender switcheroo?
Well, there's no definitive answer, but some linguists think it might have something to do with the influence of other Romance languages, where you see similar shifts. Or maybe it's related to, like, the historical context in which the word was used. Like maybe there was a cultural association with eagles as symbols of power or strength, which were often attributed to masculinity.
It's a real linguistic mystery.
It is, and it makes you think about how much we still don't know about how languages work.
Okay, so masculine A endings, those are pretty wild.
Yeah.
But Hemi also mentioned feminine nouns ending in O, like la moto, la radio, la foto. How do those fit in?
Oh, those are great examples of how, even when a word seems to break the rules, there's often a deeper explanation. Like moto and photo are actually shortened forms of motocicleta and fotografia, which D-O end in A.
Oh, so the root words follow the general rule, but the everyday shortened versions throw us off.
Exactly. It's a reminder that language is always evolving and adapting to how people use it.
I'm starting to feel like I'm getting a handle on this masculine and feminine thing. But I have a feeling there's more to come.
Oh, there's definitely more. We've just scratched the surface. But it's all part of the fun, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a fun challenge.
Yeah.
But my brain needs a little break before we keep going.
Okay, take a breather. We'll be back in a minute to explore even more fascinating nuances of Spanish gender. All right, feeling refreshed. Ready for more gender-bending Spanish?
I think so. My brain is definitely warmed up now.
Perfect. So let's talk about another fascinating aspect of gender in Spanish. Those words that have both genders. They stay the same whether they're referring to a male or female.
Yeah, Jaime mentioned those. And that's pretty different from English, where we usually have separate words for male and female roles like actor and actress.
Right. Like in Spanish, you can use the same word, médico, for both a male and a female doctor. And it really gets you thinking about how language can shape our perceptions, you know?
Yeah, it's like the language itself is promoting gender neutrality in certain professions.
Exactly. And that's what makes this stuff so interesting to me. It's not just about grammar rules, it's about culture and how we see the world.
So what other examples did Jaime give of these dual gender words?
Well, he mentioned ministro, which can be el ministro or la ministra for the minister.
Okay, so the word stays the same, but the article changes to indicate the gender.
Yep, exactly. And then there's juez, which can be el juez or la jueza for the judge.
El juez, la jueza. Okay, it's actually pretty simple when you think about it.
Yeah, it's just a different way of approaching gender in language. And then there's jefe, which can be el jefe or la jefa for the boss.
El jefe, el jefe. It's interesting how Spanish can be so specific about gender with those articles, but then with other words, it's totally fluid.
Right, it's like this fascinating balance between precision and flexibility.
All right, one more thing I remember from Jaime's lesson was how to specify the sex of animals in Spanish. He talked about adding macho or hembra to the animal's name.
Ah, yes. Another area where Spanish does things differently, we typically have separate words for male and female animals in English, like bull and cow, or rooster and hen.
Right. But in Spanish, you just take the general word for the animal and tack on macho or hembra to be more specific.
Exactly. So instead of having different words for a male and female kangaroo, you'd just say canguro macho or canguro hembra.
It's actually a pretty efficient system.
It is, and it reflects a different way of categorizing the natural world. You know, it's not about having separate words for every variation. It's about building upon a common base.
I like that. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from the basic rules of masculine and feminine nouns to all these mind-blowing exceptions and cultural insights. What would you say are the key takeaways for our listeners as they continue their Spanish language journey?
Well, first off, I'd say don't be intimidated. Learning a new language is all about pushing your boundaries and embracing the unknown. There are going to be moments of confusion, times when you feel like you're drowning in grammar rules, but trust me, it gets easier with practice.
And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn.
Exactly. Don't beat yourself up if you get the gender wrong or mix up an ending. Just keep practicing, keep listening to native speakers, keep immersing yourself in the language, and over time, those masculine and feminine nouns will start to feel more natural.
So instead of getting frustrated, just embrace the challenge, right?
Exactly. View those tricky gender rules and exceptions as puzzles to solve. And the more you understand the why behind those rules, the more you'll appreciate the richness and complexity of the language.
It's like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get.
Exactly. So watch Spanish movies, listen to Spanish music, chat with native speakers, anything you can do to absorb the language and get those patterns into your brain. And don't just focus on the words themselves. Pay attention to how gender is expressed in different contexts, in different social situations. Notice how people use those articles, how they adapt their language based on who they're talking about.
It's those little details that really bring a language to life.
Right. And it takes you beyond just learning vocabulary and grammar. It's about gaining a deeper understanding of the culture and how people communicate.
Okay, before we let our listeners go off on their Spanish adventures, I think it's time for our signature thought-provoking question to ponder.
Ooh, I love these. All right. How about this? As you continue learning Spanish, Pay attention to how gender is expressed in different contexts. What can this teach you about the culture and its values?
That's a great one. It reminds us that language isn't just about communication. It's a reflection of a culture's history, beliefs, and way of seeing the world.
Exactly. So, as you're learning those masculine and feminine noun rules, don't just focus on getting them right or wrong. Think about what those rules might reveal about the Spanish-speaking world. How do they reflect attitudes towards gender? How do they shape the way people interact with each other?
It's like learning a language isn't just about learning the words. It's about learning a whole new way of thinking.
Precisely. And that's what makes it such a rewarding and enriching experience. It opens up your mind to new possibilities and challenges you to see the world from different perspectives.
I think our listeners are ready to tackle those Spanish nouns head on now.
I hope so. We've given them a lot to think about, but hey, that's what deep dives are all about, right?
Exactly. Getting past those surface level explanations and really digging into the fascinating stuff. And I bet you're already starting to see those masculine and feminine endings in a whole new light.
I hope so. It's not just about rote memorization. It's about connecting with the culture behind the language.
Speaking of connecting, we'd love to hear from you. What's been the most surprising thing you've learned about masculine and feminine nouns in Spanish? Was there a particular aha moment that stuck with you? Or maybe you stumbled upon an exception that made you laugh out loud.
Don't be shy. Share your discoveries with us. We're always eager to learn alongside our listeners. Your insights might spark a whole new discussion. After all, language learning is a collaborative journey. Everyone brings something unique to the table.
Absolutely. So hit us up with those linguistic discoveries. And if you have any burning questions or topics you'd like us to tackle in future deep dives, send those our way too.
We're always on the lookout for new material to explore. And we love tailoring these deep dives to your interests and curiosities. So a huge thank you to Jaime for his amazing video lesson. It was the perfect jumping off point for this deep dive into the nuances of Spanish grammar. And of course, thank you to all of you for joining us on this linguistic adventure. We hope you've come away with a deeper appreciation for the beauty and complexity of the Spanish language.
We've certainly covered a lot of ground today. From those basic rules to the mind-boggling exceptions, and even how those grammatical quirks reflect deeper cultural values and perspectives.
And remember, this is just the beginning of your Spanish learning journey. There's a whole world of words and grammar waiting to be explored. Keep practicing, keep those ears tuned to the rhythms of the language, and most importantly, keep having fun.
Yeah, the more you immerse yourself in the Spanish-speaking world, the more those masculine and feminine nouns will start to feel like old friends. And as you encounter those friends in different contexts, remember to ask yourself, what do these words tell me about the culture, the history, the very soul of this language?
Beautifully said. It's those deeper connections that make language learning so much more than just memorizing vocabulary. It's about understanding a people, a way of life, a whole new way of seeing the world.
So until next time, keep those brains buzzing and those curiosity fires burning. Hasta luego, and happy learning.